Hi, I'm Dan, and in this video I'm going to solve one of the major problems we have with the GeoPro, and that is this dinette table. If you're a family traveling and you need a bed for your child, this table folds down into a bed, and that's really great for that. But the two of us, we never turn it into a bed. We only use it as a table. And as a table, it's really lacking. These seats right here, they're not particularly comfortable. And the surface area, when we sit here face to face, if we both have laptops out, there's not a lot of room to really put two laptops back to back on this table. Even when we just eat at this table, there's not a lot of room. And the one other problem we have is kind of minor, but if we're sitting here having dinner, we often have the news or something on, and the person sitting on this side of the table has to turn like this to see. It's kind of irritating, it's minor, but it's something we'd like to solve. What I plan to do is take this whole dinette system out and replace it with a table that runs along this wall. We'll put two computer-type desk chairs in front of it, so we'll be sitting this way. And that way, we both have room to work. We both can turn to the right to see the TV or look out the window. So we're going to transform this into this. The desk we wanted. It's finished now. It's got enough area for both of us to sit side by side. We can eat or use our laptops there. There's PowerPoints on the surface. 12 volt and 120 shore power. We can look out the window. We can both see the TV. My wife put a corkboard and some file folder storage up there, as well as a clock. Make use of that space. The surface area is large enough for us to use it as a prep space. If we need extra space for cooking, or plenty of room to put our laptops out. There's some bookshelves underneath to store stuff. Use some mesh netting to store it, to keep the things in when we're driving down the road. Two of the things I was worried about when I created this tabletop was how much it was going to weigh and what would it cost. The weight is important because we wanted to make it as a net kind of zero. When we took the old dinette out and put the new tabletop in, we were hoping that the total weight change would be negligible, because one of the reasons why we bought the GeoPro is a relatively lightweight tramper to pull with our truck, and it's only got a single axle, so weight's very important. So I've seen a lot of people do renovations to their RV and they put big 2x4s everywhere and heavy wood, and I don't think they really think about how much weight they're adding to the trailer. We wanted to not make that, so one of the things I did was I created this design using aluminum framing, which is very lightweight, and tried to use lightweight material throughout. In the end, the original dinette we took out, I measured the weight on it, and it was 70 pounds all up. All the material I took out was 70 pounds. This table, when I put it back in, is about 55 pounds, all the material I put in. Not including the two chairs we're going to have to put in, but the table itself is 55. So that gives us 15 pounds for chairs, which I know they're going to be more than that, but it shouldn't be too much more, so net it should be relatively close. I think the difference in the usability is worth a few extra pounds there, but it's close to zero as I can get. As far as the cost, I haven't totaled it up yet, but I'm going to put a sheet right here next to me that'll show you approximately how much the cost was to create this table and all the materials. The only thing we haven't decided yet is the type of chairs we're going to use. So we've got two examples here that we've purchased. This one is just like a stool. You can move it in and use it while you're working. The nice thing about the stool is it only weighs 11 pounds. It's adjustable in height. And it stores completely underneath, so when we're using this as a prep area, there's nothing in the way. The standard computer desk type chairs, which we originally planned on using, are a lot more than 11 pounds. I don't know exactly the weight of this chair. But also when you're trying to do prep, it's in the way, so we'll have to move it out the way or reach over it. The nice thing about them, of course, is they're more comfortable. You can lean back on them. So we're going to do a test. We're going to do a camping trip with one of each of the chairs. We'll both use both of them. And then we'll decide at the end which chair we want. If you're interested in knowing which chair we decided and the pros and cons of each, subscribe to my channel and ring the bell, and then you'll be notified when we have that video up. I'm not going to post that video to the Facebook groups and the RV forum and things like that, because most people aren't going to be interested in what chair we pick. It's not an interesting video like this this reservation. But I think we're pretty happy with the final result. Fits in the area really well. And now I'm going to go through step by step and show you how I did it. And the first step, obviously, is to just take out the table, which If you own a GeoPro, you've done this before to turn into a bed or whatever. So we'll get rid of that. Remove the cushions. Take the cover off this seat. It's just this one screw holds the seat cover. It's a Phillips head screw. Take this and remove it. I'll take this drawer out. If you watched my previous video, you'll know to remove those you got to turn these little tabs the opposite directions. Slide that out. There's an electrical outlet on here. So take the power off to the camper. I hope you don't have power on in the camper right now. It should be disconnected from shore power because this is a 110 outlet. So this little cover decorative piece comes off, and then there's two screws that hold this in place. But they're just these little tab things. These little tab things that hold onto the wall. So when you screw it backwards, they'll just fold down, and you can just take the whole thing out. Take the whole thing out, just slide it back into the box and leave it for now. Now the bench is attached to the floor and the wall with these little screws. Little place. I'm not sure how many there are. I'll count them up and tell you. They use a square head screwdriver to get them out. So just remove every one of these screws out of the metal and out of the wall and the floor, one at a time. Okay, so 11 screws I've taken out, hold this bench to the floor and to the wall. So now I should be able to just lift it out. And I'll take that out of the trailer. And now we're going to take the table leg support out of the floor. It's just a bunch of Phillips head screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus 2 in the middle. Just take them all out. You got all the screws out. You just gotta lift it off the floor. Now we're going to do the same thing we did with the other bench, with this bench. Take all the screws out and disattach from the wall. So we take the cover off first. You see there's a lot of equipment in here, so we're going to have to account for that in the bench design we're going to do. For now we're just going to remove everything. This right here is busted. I think it was busted by the factory. See that? It was originally over here and it busted off, so they put a new screw in here. Okay, I've taken the screws off the main base unit, but there's some additional screws holding it to the wall behind this plate. So I'm going to take the cover of this off by just taking out these 6 Phillips head screws. Let's take this face plate off. Okay, now that I've taken this plate off, you can see there's 1, 2, 3 screws also holding the bench here, so I'm going to take them out. So I'm going to take this box over the wheel well off first. What I'm going to do is use a razor knife to just put a score into this rubber across here, just to help it break apart as I pull it off, without ripping the Luan Harasdale coating. So I can see it's separated now. And what happens is that there's 2 cleats on the side and the top here that are screwed into the floor, and these cabinets are nailed to it. So I'm just going to do is use like a screwdriver or some kind of pry bar to pry the nails out and separate it. Oh, I pulled the nails actually out the wall there because I couldn't lift it up. So damaged the wall there, but fortunately that'll be covered by the new deck. Be nice if we could have been able to separate this as well as the bottom, because you see the small like staples that are into these wood, but this one was nailed in. I have to lift it up and forward at the same time, which I couldn't do. So now we got some damage to the walls, but I'm not sure it's something we can cover up. So we'll take that out, and I'll take those bolts out of this cleat. Okay, I'm going to do the same as I did on the side wall and score this rubber sealant with the razor knife. So I'm going to pull away, it separates. There's a screw right there, but I don't know if it goes into anything. No, it doesn't. Let me take this other Okay, so the dinette is out now, and all the booths. Now we got the open area. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move this water pump, because I like to move this whole system, the water pump and the outlet, over above the water pump, because we're going to make the table high, but we want to make it not that deep. So we're hoping to make the table just this deep. So move all these other controls on a frame over the water pump. This is the whole dinette and all the material we took out of the camper. My plan is to weigh all this to get an idea of how much weight I removed from the camper, and then I can get an idea of how much weight I'm going to put in the camper to see what the net difference is. I used SketchUp to create a sketch design of the desk frame. This is using 3/4 inch aluminum bars, and they're going to be all welded together. The one part goes over the water heater, and we'll encase the water heater in the water pump area. And the other part down here will go over the wheel well, form a base for the tabletop, and then the top part goes across and will actually hold the tabletop. Will go across the whole top part. Once the tabletop and leg are put on, this is what the design will look like, and all that'll be framed up, covered in a Luan surface. What I'm going to make the table frame out of is these 3/4 inch tubes. They're 1/16 of an inch thick of aluminum, so it makes them relatively strong, but also lightweight. I got these at Lowe's, but I think Home Depot sells them too. They're in 6 foot lengths, or 4 foot lengths, or 3 foot lengths. Mostly about 6 foot lengths. And I have the diagram I put together of the lengths I need. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all the tubes to the right size to put it together. I'm just using a standard miter saw with a normal multi-purpose blade. You don't want to get something with a lot of teeth, but the nice thing about aluminum is it's relatively soft, so you can cut it with just a normal blade, a saw blade. In order to attach the aluminum poles together temporarily until they're welded, I bought a piece of L-shaped aluminum bracket, and then I used my miter saw to cut 1-inch strips, actually about half-inch strips, and then I just used a metal drill bit to drill holes in each side, and then I'm using these half-inch screws. So I'm going to use these brackets that I've cut, angular brackets, everywhere at the corners to hold the poles together temporarily, and then the screws to screw them in. All right, the desk is all together now. It's just together with screws and the brackets I made out of aluminum. Sometimes straight brackets, sometimes these angle brackets. So it's together, and I can put it in the camper, make sure it fits correctly, but obviously not strong enough to actually be the final product, so I'm going to have to take it to the welder to get it welded so it's fully strong. But I want to put it together to ensure the welder knew exactly how it was supposed to go together, and to make it easier for him to do it. I also put these crossbars on here that'll allow me to screw it to the wall, but I just taped these on so I didn't want to put screws on. The lower lip is kind of small, but everything else is screwed together. All right, here it is in the space in the camper. It's a bit rough looking because the wires right there have to be removed from that outlet, which I'm going to move the outlet anyways, so I can sit it flush against the wall. So it's a little bit out, therefore it's a little bit cocked. But mostly I think it proves as a design that it will fit in there and sit at the right height. The frame's back from the welders. Looks really good. As you can see, they sanded down the tops because I told them the counter was going to be laying flat against that. And they sanded most of the front surfaces, but very strong now, so I have no doubt that it will hold the weight of the desk. I'm going to make the countertop out of 3/4 inch pine plywood. So I'm going to have to put the desk on there, frame on there, and then measure the frame and get it cut. And then I'm going to cover it with this laminate, which we ordered from, I believe, Home Depot, and it matches the laminate in the trailer that is currently in the GeoPro pretty well. Not perfect, pretty well. So that's the next task, is to measure out and cut the tabletop. I put the frame on the desktop upside down, clamped it in so it's square. That'll be the front of the desktop. And then I drew lines with a T-square to show exactly where the edges of the desktop will be. I cut the plywood top to shape. I made the lip sit over 1 inch on both of the outside edges. And then of course it's flush along the back and up against the wall. So that's, we'll fit in the camper with a 1 inch lip. That's gonna allow me to cover these sides and the front of the thing with the desk with the veneer, and veneer lip will not be available, not be visible. Okay, now I've cut all the wood. I won't go through the steps of cutting wood. I'm sure people can figure it out if you're gonna make this, but this is the tabletop. We already showed you the laminate that's gonna go on it. That's the frame, and this is all the wood that will create the sides and front of the cabinet. Now it's just a matter of screwing glue it all together. One board on the end had a design change. I had to put some shims on it because that side of the cabinet, the board that I was going to put on had no support on this side here, the front face. So I decided that even when I put the board on here to support that, there wasn't much of an area to grip, so I made it twice as wide. So it's a 1/2 inch extra to give it more of a surface area to grip onto. So that was the only modification I did there. Other than that, it's exposed birch on the interior of the shelf unit, and then just Luan on all the other exposed surfaces, which will be covered by a shelf paper that will match, hopefully, as close as we can, the GeoPro's cabinets that we have already. I cut the ground baseboard in. This is the 1/2 inch ply I'm using. And it just is a big long piece with notches cut in on the edges and the corners so it'll fit in. And that's just put in place, just laid in place. Then I took the side pieces, which are these 1/2 inch rectangulars that I'm putting at the end. And what I've done is I've drilled holes with my metal drill, and I'm using these trim screws that are 1 7/8 long, and they're stainless steel. And so I drilled 4 holes through the metal, and then I'm putting 2 screws on this side. I don't know if you can see that. 2 screws on this side, and they're being anchored into the wood on this side, and then on the opposite corners, 2 screws, and that'll hold these 2 wood pieces together. So each piece of wood is holding 2 screws. You can't screw into the metal. You're gonna have to make just a channel on it because it really doesn't hold very well in the long term. I found that out when I put these brackets on it. So these 2 pieces of metal, these 2 pieces of wood are being held on either side of this channel by 4 screws, 2 going each direction. The end piece on this side, I drilled holes into the metal, but I didn't want the exposed heads. I didn't want the exposed heads on this side, so that when I put the surface covering on, they'd be kind of, you know, held back by the head of the pan head of the screw. So what I did was I drilled a hole right through, 4 holes, 1 for each corner. And then I took my larger drill bit and drilled on just one side a larger hole so the screw head will go through. So now what's happening is I used small screws and I ran the screw through into this board to hold in place, and it's being held up against the surface of the inside metal here. It's too dark and you to see through the hole, but the screws are in there holding the board together. So I have shorter pan head stainless steel screws on that side. And on this side, I did a similar thing. However, because this side won't have a panel in the front, I just put the screws into the aluminum and the head's holding them in place. So 2 screws on the top and bottom, and these screws here are the ones I used to shim to put the board out wider. So that's all the birch paneling, 1/2 inch birch paneling I'm using for the inside of the cabbage storage area. What I'm gonna have to do is drill some holes through the top here. Okay, I've drilled 10 holes through the brackets I'm using these 1 1/4 inch stainless steel screws. They'll go up through and drill that much into the tabletop, which should be enough to hold it in place. But I'm going to have to put that in while the tabletop's in place in the camper, because once I won't be able to get the desk into the camper if the tabletop's already on. The door's not that wide. After I cut the tabletop from the 3/4 inch ply, I rounded the corner with just a jigsaw, and then I sanded the edges down. And what I did was I cut a 1 1/2 inch strip, maybe about 2 inches, of laminate from the 4x8 sheet of laminate I have that I'm going to put on the countertop. And then I glued it with contact cement, as the contact cement I used over there, around the whole edge of the table. So I'm going to put that on before I put the top on. It took a little bit of clamping to let it dry. Fortunately, contact cement doesn't take too long, so it holds if you follow the instructions. One of the things is, because this is laminate sheet's a little bit thick, I wasn't sure if I could make that corner. So what I did was I used a hot air gun to heat it up a bit before I bent it around the corner. It seems to work all right. There's a little crack here, but that's way below the tabletop. The other problem I had was because it's a 4x8 inch sheet, once I cut the strip and ran it around the side, because it's going all the way around the edge, it isn't long enough, the one strip, to get all the way around. So I had to cut another little piece, and I tried to line it up as well as I could, and then put it to the end. Now, obviously these top edges are going to be trimmed off with the router a bit. I'll show you that next, but that way, unfortunately, one strip won't make it all the way around. I couldn't get a edge banding that matches the laminate that we got, so I just had to do with the strip off laminate sheet. Fortunately, because the table's not 4x8, I have plenty of extra sheet to cut that off before I use the top piece. Okay, I used a helper to put the laminate top down on the surface, the countertop. Both sides were covered in contact cement, so you put it down, you better be careful. I left a lip around all the way around it so I can route it to be fit exactly the table size, instead of trying to line it up when I'm putting it on. Okay, I put another board on top of it, and I clamped it down and put some weights on it. I'm going to let that dry overnight so the contact cement will dry and hold it on, and then I can route the edges off. Okay, the router did a pretty good job of trimming down the edges. Looks pretty good now. Okay, I've attached the base for the table leg to the rounded outside corner. The leg here is just from IKEA. It comes with longer screws, but they're too long for this type of thickness of board. So I'm just using some number 8 1/2 inch screws, stainless steel, and screwing them in. That should be strong enough to support this leg. The leg we chose black in color, but it's pretty straightforward. You just screw it into the base, and then it's extendable to be the height you need. So that'll be the support for the table on this outside corner. And there's a first look at the desk for the tabletop that's finished and on. Not screwed in yet, but it's put in place, and the leg's been extended to about the right height. So other than the front panels being put on, that's basically what the desk is going to look like. One thing we're missing is I'm going to be cutting a square in here to put the power point, and a round one here. This is the outlet I'm going to put on the tabletop here, so it's easy to plug our laptops in or even charge our phones in that. So I made a template, put some tape on the table to prevent splintering, and I made a template for the size hole that needs to be cut out to fit it in. And what I'm going to do is use a drill on the corners to start, and then a jigsaw to cut the square out. Okay, I cut the hole out. It's not perfectly straight. I'm not the world's greatest, I guess, carpenter, but it'll work. So this is the power strip that's going to go in there. Fits It's in there flat. Comes with little screws to put them in. I'll do that later. I'll wait till I get ready to put the table on before I connect that. The 120-volt circuit that I'm going to put in the tabletop, we'll plug it into this outlet here that used to be under the table. I'm going to build a box around that so that under the table there'll be a second thing to plug it into. But what I'd like to do is also have a 12-volt outlet there that runs off the battery. So for boondocking or pulled over on the side of the road, I don't have to turn the inverter on or anything to have power at the desk. So to run that circuit, I just used some speaker wire because I had it, and it should handle 12 volts fine. So there's a hole in the floor here, and so I ran the cable through that hole in the floor. I took out this panel in the pass-through storage. Behind that panel is a hole where the cables come out. So I went through this side and took the plastic shielding out, and I ran that cable using fishing tape. I ran it out of this hole, the speaker wire, then up through the hole that's already in this board here. All this is covered by that panel I took out. Next to the 12-volt line, the 120-volt line for this outlet. And then I just wire wrapped it to the zip tie, I guess, to the zip tie that was already there, and follows that cable. I'll notice what happens is it goes through the pass-through here and under the Murphy bed. As an aside, there's a huge hole in this wall that goes to the Murphy bed, and I'm not sure what it exists for. I have no idea. It's not covered up. It's covered by the plastic, but it was obviously cut for some purpose, and I'm not sure what. But I ran the wiring through the hole here, and it runs across the back of the floor under the Murphy bed storage. And then the cable goes back out with all the other cables up here, and I zip tied it along here, and actually zip tied these wires that were already here. They go by the 120 amp, the 1000-watt inverter plug system, but the wiring goes up the side here. I had to take the plastic panels out of here too, and then I ran it up along the cables that came over to this USB outlet, and I just tapped into the lines that were already there for that USB outlet. Since that USB outlet works off battery power as well, now I'm just going to have two USB outlets. So this cable here is obviously powered by battery and is on some kind of fuse that handles one USB charging, so that should be fine. I also ran these wires, I wire wrapped them or zip tied them up higher, because once you take these plastic shrouds out, there's a lot more room in these storage areas. So I think I'm going to put the plastic here. If I think this, I'll leave this exposed, put some wood across here, and some hanging stuff, and that'll give me a larger compartment here. But that's a different project. But that's the wiring that I have now for the that I can tap into to hook my USB charger into the tabletop. So I made this stand to hold the pump up over the water heater, so it's a smaller space. It's just more of the 1/2-inch plywood that I used for the bookcase area, and I used actually cut pieces of the aluminum tubing as corner brackets. Obviously you could just use regular brackets, but I had that, so I figured why not use it, just with 2 screws in each direction to hold it together. And I put these cleats on the floor and screwed the board to them, so it's relatively stable. And it's just wide enough for the pump to be screwed in, and I screwed the outlet that used to be on the floor into it too. And this is, I think, the fuse box for the pump. And then I'm going to take this other sensor, which I don't even know what it is, and hook it on the bookcase where it used to be on the edge of the seat once I put the bookcase in, the tabletop face in. So I've already tested it and ran it. It seems to run. One of the things I had to do was I had to extend this water line because it wasn't long enough to get the pump over to here. But as an aside, when I did it, I found out that the plastic fitting that was on here was leaking, and I don't think it was leaking from me moving around. I think this has been leaking since we bought the trailer, because occasionally my wife and I would notice there'd be water on the floor here, and we thought maybe it was coming out of the shower or maybe the toilet when we were moving, but I'm pretty sure it's when we were driving it would jiggle and loose this connection. So I put a new brass fitting on there with some liquid Teflon, and I put this new line in to extend it. And now I'm testing it, and there's no leaks, so I'm hoping that solves 2 problems. 1, being able to put the pump up here, and 2, the leaks we were having. So I think that's about it. Ready to put the table in. One other thing I did was I had to disconnect the wiring from this outlet here so I could run the wiring around the table. So when I put the table in, I'll run that wiring through a hole in the table, which I haven't got yet. All right, the frame's in. It's all screwed into the wall. And the floor looks pretty good and stable. I think that's going to move. I put the screws in that were in the cleats for the table in approximately the same location. That's why I put this bar in here so I could later determine where I wanted to go. Because I think they might be stronger there. I don't know if there's any supports where the table cleats were before, but I'm going to assume there was. And I put one more over here, and then all the ones in the floor. And then I put one into this side wall just to hold to the Asdel panel. Truth is, this Asdel panel's got nothing behind it, but I just figured I'd put one in there so it's not wobbly. So as you can see, I had to take the electrical outlet boxes out, run the wiring up through, then I'm going to put a box around here, and I'll have one outlet on the front, and then the wiring will go into the back outlet, and that'll be covered. And then I ran the cable I'm running for the 12-volt charger up through the center of this channel and up the top so that I can hook it to the USB at the top of the table. You can see where I left the gap in the frame down here so that the wiring that exists can go through there. And I can put it over top of it. This is going to run across the wheel well. I think that these things that they put in the trailer, the outlet covers, are really kind of crappy, but I didn't want to replace the one on the outside since I'd have to take the front panel of the outside of the trailer panel off and everything, so I left that one, but I replaced the one that was under the dinette with a standard outlet for 15 amps 110. This is the box I made out of ply, 2-inch or half-inch ply, to cover the outlet that's going to go under the cabinet. I made it out of 2-inch ply. I'd hoped to make it good enough that I wouldn't have to put the shelf paper on it, but with the glue and the brads in it, it didn't look that great, so I decided to put the shelf paper on top. So I think that looks a little better. It's not perfect, but I think it'll look good in place. At the final outlet box cover in. Okay, so the tabletop I put on and screwed in. Set the leg to the right length, I believe, to make the table level. I put the two power sources in the top. The USB one runs off 12 volt. It's got a blue glow to it all the time. That's weird. And this, of course, runs off on 20 volt short power. I just ran the cable to that box for that one. And the wiring that I had for the USB, I just ran down that center channel. Another thing I did was I put Great Stuff foam in the openings that I ran the cable through and all around the wheel. Well, I just thought it might be better to have some insulation along there since it was opened. Keep cold air or hot air coming up and maybe even some bugs, but I think it's pretty sealed, but I put that in anyways. So all the circuitries and all the main part of the table are done. Now I just got to put on the facade. These are the LAN panels that I cut out of 4x8 pieces of LAN that fit to the front of the cabinets. And what my wife has got is some contact paper that pretty closely matches the coverings of the cabinets that are currently in the camper. So we just rolled and put the material on the boards and then pressed it out and then cut it to shape. This is the shelf paper that we got to do the outside of the cabinets to try to match the cabinet style in the GeoPro. It's I guess it's a shelf paper and it's made in Germany, but we got it off Amazon. Put Loctite glue all around the face of there for the trim pieces there to put the facer board on. I'm going to hold it in place with Loctite. I don't want to try to nail it and have exposed nails, so I think the Loctite will hold it. It's only a thin board, so it should be fine. Okay, I put some vinyl outside corner trim on the outside of the little shelves here, and it's put some netting in there to hold stuff in case you want to put something in there. My wife has the idea of putting paper towels or extra toilet paper or something behind there. Who knows what we'll put back there, but that should hold it in place. I put some command strip clips there to hold the wire for that cable, the cable for the power outlet in the top in place. And also you'll notice that the inside of the cabinets got painted white. My wife decided that they look better white, so she painted them. And then on the outside panel here that goes where the water pump and water heater is, this panel is not actually permanently connected. I put 3 screws here with caps on them to hold that in place. So if I need to get to the water heater, I just undo those screws. The fourth corner I didn't put a screw in because it's got the trim piece that's holding it in place, so it should be strong enough like that. And this corner edge I put on, I only glued it onto this board, so when you come off, it'll come off. It's not actually connected here, so the whole thing should come off. Put a corner edge on that edge too. So with all that, I think we're finished. That's the end of the project. I just have to put some chairs in here. So that's the end of the step-by-step design of their desk. We're really happy with the outcome. If you watched it this far, I'm hoping that you want to do a project like this yourself in your GeoPro. If you do and you have any questions, you can put them in the comments on the YouTube video and I'll try to respond as much as I can. As I said, if you're interested in our outcome of the chair decision, just make sure you subscribe and press the little bell icon. That'll notify you when we put the next video up, which will be a review of the chairs. Thanks a lot for watching.